Welcome back to r/entitled parents, where everyday people share their encounters with the most ridiculous, over-the-top parents imaginable. And today's story? Oh, this one takes the cake. Let me just start by saying, a woman literally tried to poison my dog, all because she didn't like seeing him in our own front yard. Yeah, buckle up. This isn't your average Karen screamed at me in a grocery store story. No, this Karen took her entitlement to a criminal level. She was convinced that the world revolved around her, and anyone or anything that didn't fall in line was a threat, including my dog. What started as petty complaints turned into full-on harassment, and by the time I realized how dangerous she really was, it was almost too late. So, sit back, grab a drink, and let me take you back to when everything seemed totally normal, right before it got seriously messed up. I'm a 26-year-old woman living in a small, quiet suburban neighborhood. The kind of place where everyone waves when they pass you on the sidewalk, and neighbors lend each other sugar. I've lived here for about 5 years now, and I genuinely love it. At least, I used to. I work from home as a freelance graphic designer, which means I spend a lot of time inside, but I always make time for walks with my golden retriever, Max. Max is 4 years old, super friendly, and the sweetest ball of fluff you'll ever meet. He's well-trained, hardly ever barks, and loves everyone, especially kids. He's basically a walking teddy bear with a wagging tail. Our routine is pretty simple. Morning walks, afternoon playtime in the yard, and evening strolls before dinner. Everyone in the neighborhood knows Max. He's like the unofficial dog mayor around here. People actually stop their cars to say hi. It was all good, until she moved in. About a month ago, a new neighbor moved into the house across the street. I didn't think much of it at first. She was a middle-aged woman, maybe in her 40s, with that "I'm always angry at something" face. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. But hey, not everyone's friendly, right? At first, I thought she just liked to keep to herself. But then came the glares, the fake smiles, the way she'd stand on her porch with her arms crossed whenever Max and I walked by. Something about her just felt off. One chilly morning, I was out walking Max like usual when Karen stepped outside her house. She waved at me, but it felt forced, like she was trying to act friendly but wasn't really interested. "Hi there," she said with a tight smile. "What a big dog you have." "Yeah, he's a good boy," I replied, patting Max's head. Then she added, "But honestly, does he have to bark so much? It's really loud, and I can hear him all the way in my house." That surprised me because Max hardly ever barks, especially during our walks. I told her, "I don't think Max barks that much. Maybe it's another dog." Karen shrugged, but her smile faded just a bit. "Well, it's enough to keep me awake sometimes." Her tone was polite, but there was something sharp behind her words. I didn't want to start a fight, so I just nodded and said, "I'll keep an eye on it." As I started walking away, I noticed her watching us closely. Not like a friendly neighbor, but with a cold, almost angry look. Her eyes were fixed on Max like she was sizing him up, or maybe judging me. I tried to brush it off, but it felt wrong, like something was brewing beneath the surface. Before I turned the corner, I glanced back one last time. Karen was still standing there on her porch, arms crossed, staring at us like she was waiting for something. That's when I first realized this wasn't just a case of a grumpy neighbor. This was something worse. A week after that first tense meeting, things started to get worse. Karen began filing complaints with the neighborhood committee, and none of them were true. The first complaint was about noise. She claimed Max was barking nonstop, disturbing her peace day and night. I was baffled. Max barely barks unless there's a squirrel or a delivery truck nearby. Plus, I take him for walks often, so he's usually calm at home. Then she accused me of not picking up after Max. That one really hurt because I'm very responsible. I always carry bags and clean up immediately after him. I even checked with neighbors, and they said they never saw me leave any mess behind. The next complaint was about Max growling aggressively at her kids when they walked past. I was shocked. Max is one of the gentlest dogs I've ever known. He loves kids and strangers alike. Maybe Karen's kids were the ones who acted rude, but no one wanted to say that. Because of these complaints, the neighborhood committee sent me warnings. They said if the problems continued, I might face fines or other actions. I tried to explain that these accusations weren't true, but Karen was very convincing with her detailed stories. I felt confused and frustrated. Why would she lie like this? I just wanted to keep the peace and be a good neighbor. But with every complaint, the tension grew. Neighbors who used to smile and wave started giving me strange looks. It felt like Karen was turning everyone against me. And every time I saw her, she acted like nothing was wrong. Just that fake, forced smile. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. Karen's actions were about to escalate far beyond harmless complaints. Things took a sharp turn for the worse a few days later. Karen stopped hiding her dislike for me and Max and started confronting me directly, in public. One afternoon, I was walking Max near her house when she suddenly yelled, "Keep that dog away from me. He's a menace." Her voice was loud enough for the neighbors to hear. I tried to stay calm and said, "Max isn't bothering anyone." But she just glared and stormed off. Then came the weird stuff. A few days after that, Karen accidentally tripped over Max's leash while I was unlocking my front door. She acted all surprised but said with a smirk, "You should keep that wild dog under control." I was shocked. Was she really pretending to trip just to intimidate me? It felt like something out of a bad movie. I started noticing Karen watching my house through her curtains. She would stand behind the window for hours, her eyes fixed on Max and me like she was planning something. It made me uneasy, but I didn't know what to do. One evening, an older neighbor stopped me while I was outside and whispered, "Be careful with that woman. She's not right. I've seen her act strange before." I appreciated the warning, but still didn't fully understand how far Karen would go. Then came the last straw. I found a folded note slipped under my door, written in messy handwriting. It said someone was going to call animal control because Max was dangerous and neglected. The note was anonymous, but I knew exactly who sent it. Karen wasn't just complaining anymore. She was trying to ruin my life. The tension was building, and I was scared for Max and myself. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what yet. One afternoon, I was in the middle of working when Max suddenly came running inside, looking really sick. His usual bright eyes were dull, and he was drooling like crazy. I immediately knew something was wrong. I rushed him to the vet right away. The vet ran some tests and told me Max might have ingested something toxic. They said he needed treatment fast, or it could get worse. My heart was pounding. As I sat there watching Max on the vet's table, my mind was racing. This wasn't an accident. Someone had poisoned him. The idea made me sick. When I got home later that day, I started searching the yard. I looked everywhere, hoping to find what had made Max so ill. Near the back fence, hidden under some leaves, I found a piece of meat. It looked normal at first, but when I picked it up, I noticed something strange inside, like small white pellets. I took a photo and kept the meat as evidence. I called the police and explained everything. They told me to come to the station and file a report, but they said they needed more proof before they could take any action. I felt helpless. How do you prove something like this when it happens so quickly and without witnesses? That night, Max was weak, but he was a fighter. I stayed up all night next to him, watching him breathe. I couldn't stop thinking about who would do this and why. I thought about Karen. All the complaints, the watching, the intimidation. It had to be her. But I had no real proof yet. This was no longer just about annoying neighbor drama. This was dangerous, and it was personal. I knew I had to catch her in the act. I wasn't going to let whoever did this get away with hurting Max. So, I made a plan. After what happened to Max, I knew I had to prove who was behind this. I couldn't just wait for more poison to show up. Or worse, for something irreversible to happen. So, I called my best friend, Sarah, and explained everything. She immediately offered to help. Together, we bought a security camera that could record at night and set it up facing the backyard, right where I had found the suspicious meat. For the first couple of days, nothing happened. Max stayed close to me, and the yard was quiet. I tried to stay hopeful, but the waiting was hard. Every time I looked at the camera, I was nervous it would catch nothing again. Then, late one night, I decided to check the footage. I sat on the couch with Sarah, both of us holding our breath as the video played. At first, it was just darkness. Then, at around 2 a.m., the camera caught something, or rather someone, moving near the fence. My heart stopped when I saw her. Karen. She was sneaking along the fence line, clutching a plastic bag in one hand. She stopped at the spot where I had found the poisoned meat, pulled something out, and dropped it onto the ground. Sarah and I stared at the screen in shock. It was clear as day. Karen was the one doing this. We watched her leave quickly, glancing around like she didn't want to be seen. I felt a mix of anger and relief. Finally, I had the proof I needed. The next morning, I prepared myself. It was time to confront Karen, with evidence this time. The next day, I gathered my courage and headed across the street to Karen's house. I had the video ready on my phone, and I was determined to get answers. When she opened the door, I stayed calm. "Karen, I want to talk about what's been happening with Max," I said quietly. Then I showed her the footage, the clear video of her dropping something near the fence. Her face went pale for a moment, but then she snapped. "That's not me. You're lying," she screamed. "How dare you accuse me of something so horrible? I'll sue you for defamation." Her voice was loud enough that neighbors started to peek out of their windows and come outside. I felt a sudden surge of support as people gathered around, curious about the commotion. Karen's shouting grew more desperate and wild. She tried to twist the story, claiming I was framing her because I was jealous of her new house or that I was trying to get her evicted. But no one believed her. The video was too clear, and everyone knew how peaceful our neighborhood had been until Karen moved in. Her lies were falling apart right in front of her. I told the neighbors everything: the complaints, the threats, the poisoning. And they listened, nodding and whispering among themselves. Finally, I pulled out my phone and said, "I've already given this footage to the police. It's out of my hands now." Karen's face twisted in rage and humiliation. She slammed the door before anyone could say another word. After that, the neighborhood seemed to turn against her. People stopped waving or talking to her. She was alone, exactly where she belonged. At least Max was safe now, and justice was finally starting to catch up. A few days after the confrontation, animal control showed up at my door. They had received my report and were ready to investigate. They inspected my yard carefully, took samples of the suspicious meat, and asked me questions about Max's health and Karen's behavior. I gave them everything I knew, including the video footage. The police also got involved. After reviewing the evidence, they decided to issue Karen a formal warning. Depending on local laws, they mentioned she could face charges for animal cruelty if anything else happened. Karen was told to stay away from me and Max and to stop any contact immediately. For the first time, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood. People who had once been on the fence started to see the truth. They stopped waving at Karen or speaking to her. It was clear she had been lying and causing trouble from day one. Slowly, Karen became isolated. No more fake smiles or forced friendliness. Just cold silence and empty porches. A few weeks later, Karen moved out. I didn't hear where she went, and honestly, I didn't care. It felt like a huge victory. Not just for me and Max, but for the whole neighborhood. Life started to return to normal. Max was healthy again and back to his usual happy self. I could finally walk down the street without feeling anxious or watched. This whole nightmare taught me how dangerous entitlement can be when taken too far, and how important it is to stand up for yourself and your furry friends. Looking back, the whole situation still feels surreal, like something out of a bad TV drama. I never imagined a simple neighbor dispute could turn so terrifying, especially when it involved someone trying to hurt my dog. I'm incredibly grateful that Max survived and is back to being his happy, goofy self. Watching him wag his tail and chase squirrels again reminds me how lucky we are. I also want to thank my neighbors who stood by me, even when things got messy. Their support made a huge difference and reminded me that community still matters. And of course, thanks to all of you on r/entitledparents for listening and sharing your stories. It's comforting to know I'm not alone dealing with crazy neighbors like Karen. If there's one lesson I've learned, it's this. Don't mess with a dog owner, especially not in a neighborhood where everyone knows your dog and loves them. So, to all the Karens out there thinking they can intimidate or harm pets, they should think twice. Because dog owners don't just love their pets. They protect them with everything they've got. And if you ever need proof, just check out this subreddit. We've got plenty of stories like mine. Crazy neighbors and entitled parents who take things way too far.